We're reading from the Śrī Caitanya Charitamrita. Before we commence, we will offer our obeisances to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami, to the Panchatattva, to Shri Shri Radha and Krishna, to all the great acharyas, and to all the assembled devotees who are glorified by Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami as the listeners. What's the use in writing a book unless somebody reads it? And so we have a great part to play in the Caitanya Charitamrita, that is the detailed explanation of our relationship with Krishna. And in some cultures, love is a one-word concept with not much nuance. But in the culture of the Caitanya Charitamrita, we understand the innumerable details of what love really is. I've heard that Eskimos have multiple names for snow because of their intimate connection with snow. It's not one thing, it's many things. Even skiers have nomenclature for different kinds of conditions of snow. And similarly, in the culture of the Śrī Caitanya Charitamrita, we find out what it means to love God in great detail. So we're taking up at the very famous chapter 22, the process of devotional service. Text 1. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. He is an ocean of transcendental mercy, and although the subject matter of Bhakti Yoga is very confidential, he has nonetheless manifested it so nicely, even in this age of Kali, the age of quarrel. All glories to Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, all glories to Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Advaita Chandra, and all glories to all the devotees of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu said, I have described one's relationship with Krishna in various ways. This is the subject matter of all the Vedas. Krishna is the center of all activities. Now I shall speak about the characteristics of devotional service, by which one can attain the shelter of Krishna and his loving transcendental service. A human being's activities should be centered only on devotional service to Krishna. That is the verdict of all Vedic literatures, and all saintly people have firmly concluded this. When the mother Vedas, Shruti, is questioned as to whom to worship, she says that you are the only Lord and worshipable object. Similarly, the corollaries of the Shruti Shastras, the Smriti Shastras, give the same instructions just like sisters. The Puranas, which are like brothers, follow in the footsteps of their mother. O enemy of the demon Mura, the conclusion is that you are the only shelter. Now I have understood this in truth. This is a quotation from the Vedic literature. This quotation from the Vedic literature was spoken to the Lord by great sages. Krishna is the non-dual absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although he is one, he maintains different personal expansions and energies for his pastimes. The Lord has many potencies, and he is non-different from all these potencies. Because the potencies and the potent cannot be separated, they are identical. Krishna is described as the source of all potencies, and he is also identified with the external potency, the material energy. Krishna also has internal potencies, or spiritual potencies, which are always engaged in his personal service. His internal potency is different from his external potency. Krishna's internal potency and Krishna himself, who is the potent, are always identical. Krishna expands himself in many forms. Some of them are personal expansions and some are separate expansions. Thus, he performs pastimes in both the spiritual and the material worlds. The spiritual worlds are the Vaikuntha planets, and the material universes are the Brahmandas, gigantic globes governed by Lord Brahma. Expansions of his personal self, like the quadruple manifestations of Sankarsana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Vasudeva, descend as incarnations from Vaikuntha to this material world. These separated expansions are the living entities. Although they are expansions of Krishna, they are counted among his different potencies. Purport: the personal expansions are known as Vishnu Tattva, and the separated expansions are known as Jiva Tattva. Although the Jivas, living entities, are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are still counted among his multipotencies. This is fully described by Lord Kṛṣṇa in the Bhagavad Gita. Aparayam itastanyam prakritim vidi me param. Jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharayate jagat. Besides this inferior nature, O mighty armed Arjun, there is another superior energy of mind which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Although the living entities are Krishna's parts and parcels, they are Prakriti, not Purusha. Sometimes Prakriti, a living entity, attempts to imitate the activities of the Purusha. Due to a poor fund of knowledge, living entities conditioned in this material world claim to be God. They are thus illusioned. A living entity cannot be on the level of a Vishnu Tattva or the personality of Godhead at any stage. Therefore, it is ludicrous for a living entity to claim to be God. Advanced spiritualists would never accept such a thing. Such claims are made to cheat ordinary foolish people. The Krishna consciousness movement declares war against such bogus incarnations. The bogus propaganda put out by people claiming to be God has killed God consciousness all over the world. Members of the Krishna consciousness movement must be very alert to defy these rascals who are presently misleading the whole world. One such rascal, known as Pondraka, appeared before Lord Kṛṣṇa, and the Lord immediately killed him. Of course, those who are Krishna's servants cannot kill such imitation gods, but they should try their best to defeat them through the evidence of Shastra, authentic knowledge received through the disciplic succession. The living entities, jivas, are divided into two categories. Some are eternally liberated and others are eternally conditioned. Those who are eternally liberated are always awake to Krishna consciousness, and they render transcendental loving service at the feet of Lord Kṛṣṇa. They are to be considered eternal associates of Krishna, and they are eternally enjoying the transcendental bliss of serving Krishna. Apart from the ever-liberated devotees, there are the conditioned souls who always turn away from the service of the Lord. They are perpetually conditioned in the material world and are subjected to the material tribulations brought about by different bodily forms in hellish conditions. Due to his being opposed to Krishna consciousness, the conditioned soul is punished by the witch of the external energy Maya. He is thus ready to suffer the threefold miseries brought about by the body and mind, the inimical behavior of other living entities, and natural disturbances caused by the demigods. In this way, the conditioned soul becomes the servant of lusty desires, and when these are not fulfilled, he becomes the servant of anger and continues to be kicked by the external energy. Maya. Wandering and wandering throughout the universe, he may by chance get the association of a devotee physician whose instructions and hymns make the witch of the external energy flee. The conditioned soul thus gets into touch with devotional service to Lord Kṛṣṇa, and in this way he can approach nearer and nearer to the Lord. An explanation of verses 8 through 15 is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya. The Lord is spread throughout the creation in his quadruple expansions and incarnations. Krishna is fully represented with all potencies in each and every personal extension. But the living entities, although separated expansions, are also considered one of the Lord's energies. The living entities are divided into two categories, the eternally liberated and the eternally conditioned. Those who are ever liberated never come in contact with Maya, the external energy. The ever conditioned souls are always under the clutches of the external energy. This is described by Lord Kṛṣṇa in the Bhagavad Gita 7.14, Daivihi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. The Nitya Baddhas are always conditioned by the external energy, and the Nitya Muktas never come in contact with the external energy. Sometimes an ever-liberated personal associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead descends into this universe just as the Lord descends. Although working for the liberation of conditioned souls, the messenger of the Supreme Lord remains untouched by the material energy. Generally, ever-liberated personalities live in the spiritual world as associates of Lord Kṛṣṇa, and they are known as Krishna Parishad, associates of the Lord. Their only business is enjoying Lord Kṛṣṇa's company, and even though such eternally liberated persons come within this material world to serve the Lord's purpose, they enjoy Lord Kṛṣṇa's company without stoppage. The ever-liberated person who works on Krishna's behalf enjoys Lord Kṛṣṇa's company through his engagement. The ever-conditioned soul, provoked by lusty desires to enjoy the material world, is forced to transmigrate from one body to another. Sometimes he is elevated to higher planetary systems, and sometimes he is degraded to hellish planets and subjected to the tribulations of the external energy. Due to being conditioned by the external energy, the conditioned soul within this material world gets two kinds of bodies, a gross material body and a subtle material body composed of mind, intelligence, and ego. Due to the gross and subtle bodies, he is subjected to the threefold miseries: adhyatmika, adhibhautika, and adhidaivika. Miseries arising from the body and mind, other living entities, and natural disturbances caused by demigods from higher planetary systems. The conditioned soul subjected to the threefold material miseries is ceaselessly kicked by Maya, and this is his disease. If by chance he meets a saintly person who works on Krishna's behalf to deliver conditioned souls, and if he agrees to abide by his order, he can gradually approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Kamadinam katina katida palita durnideshas tejam jata maina karuna natrapano pashanti utsri jaitanata yadupate sambratam lavda buddhis tvamayata sharanam abhayam nam nyungshva madasye. O my Lord, there is no limit to the unwanted orders of lusty desires. Although I have rendered these desires so much service, they have not shown any mercy to me. I have not been ashamed to serve them, nor have I even desired to give them up. O my Lord, O head of the Yadu dynasty, recently, however, my intelligence has been awakened, and now I am giving them up. Due to transcendental intelligence, I now refuse to obey the unwanted orders of these desires. And I now come to you to surrender myself at your fearless lotus feet. Kindly engage me in your personal services and save me. This verse is also quoted in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. When we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we are saying, Hare, O energy of the Lord, O my Lord Krishna. In this way, we are simply addressing the Lord and his spiritual potency, represented as Radha Krishna, Sita Ram, or Lakshmi Narayan. The devotee always prays to the Lord and his internal energy consort, so that he may engage in their transcendental loving service. When the conditioned soul attains his real spiritual energy and fully surrenders unto the Lord's lotus feet, he tries to engage in the Lord's service. This is the real constitutional position of the living entity. Devotional service to Krishna is the chief function of the living entity. There are different methods for the liberation of the conditioned soul: karma, jnana, yoga, and bhakti. But all are dependent on bhakti. Without devotional service, all other methods for spiritual realization are weak and insignificant. Unless one comes to the devotional service of Lord Krishna, jnana and yoga cannot give the desired results. Purport: in the Vedic scriptures, stress is sometimes given to fruitive activity, speculative knowledge, and the mystic yoga system. Although people are inclined to practice these processes, they cannot attain the desired results without being touched by Krishna Bhakti. Devotional service, in other words, the real desired result is to invoke dormant love of Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam 126 states, Savai pumsam parodharmo yato bhaktira toksaje aitukya pratyata yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Karma, jnana, and yoga cannot actually awaken love of Godhead. One has to take to the Lord's devotional service, and the more one is inclined to devotional service, the more he loses interest in other so-called achievements. Dhruva Maharaj went to practice mystic yoga to see the Lord personally, face to face. But when he developed an interest in devotional service, he saw that he was not being benefited by karma, jnana, and yoga. That's interesting. I'll just read it one more time. Dhruva Maharaj went to practice mystic yoga to see the Lord personally, face to face. But when he developed an interest in devotional service, he saw that he was not being benefited by karma, jnana, and yoga. An interest. Naishkarmyam apyachuta bhava varjitam nashobhate jnanam alam niranjanam kutakpuna shashvat abhadramishare nacharpitam karma yarapya karnam. When pure knowledge is beyond all material affinity, but is not dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, it does not appear very beautiful, although it is knowledge without a material tinge. What then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the beginning and transient by nature, if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord? How can they be attractive? How can they be very attractive? This is quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.12. Even after writing many Vedic literatures, Vyasadeva felt very morose. Therefore, his spiritual master Narada Dev told him that he could be happy by writing about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Up to that time, Srila Vyasadeva had written the karma-kāṇḍa and jñāna-karma sections of the Vedas, but he had not written about upasana-kāṇḍa or bhakti. Thus his spiritual master Narada chastised him and advised him to write about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore Vyasadeva began writing Srimad Bhagavatam. Those who perform severe austerities and penances, those who give away all their possessions out of charity, those who are very famous for their auspicious activity, those who are engaged in meditation and mental speculation, and even those who are very expert in reciting the Vedic mantras, are not able to obtain any auspicious results. Although they are engaged in auspicious activities, if they do not dedicate their activities to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, those who perform severe, it's worth repeating anyway, it's such a great verse. Would you agree? Yes. Those who perform severe austerities and penances, those who give away all their possessions out of charity, those who are very famous for their auspicious activity, those who are engaged in meditation and mental speculation, and even those who are very expert in reciting the Vedic mantras, are not able to obtain any auspicious results, although they are engaged in auspicious activities, if they do not dedicate their activities to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I therefore repeatedly offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose glories are always auspicious. Tapasvino dana para yashasvino manasvino mantra vida sumangala shemam na vindanti vina yad arpanam tasmai subhadra shavase namo namaha. That's a verse worth memorizing, isn't it? Taspasvina, those engaged in severe austerities and penances. Dana para, those engaged in giving away their possessions as charity. Yashasvina, those who are famous in society. Manasvina, experts in mental speculation or meditation. Mantravida, experts in reciting the Vedic hymns. Sumangala, very auspicious. Shemam, real, eternal auspiciousness. Na, never. Vindanti, obtain. Vina, without. Yet arpanam, dedicating unto whom? The personality of Godhead. Tasmai, unto that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Subhadra Shravase, whose glory is very auspicious. Nama, nama. I offer my repeated respectful obeisances. Do you like the verse? Yes. On a scale of 1 to 10? 10? Outside People's Party is not voting. They're boycotting today. Only one person. Okay. Text 21. Speculative knowledge alone without devotional service is not able to give liberation. On the other hand, I needed that. Thank you very much. Speculative knowledge alone without devotional service is not able to give liberation. On the other hand, without knowledge, one can obtain liberation if one engages in the Lord's devotional service. I mean, we just started this chapter and we can't go much further because the verses are too nice. What are we going to do? Call your employer, tell him you can't make it. The chapter's too nice. We're going to have to stay an extra week. Speculative knowledge alone without devotional service is not able to give liberation. On the other hand, even without knowledge, one can obtain liberation if one engages in the Lord's devotional service. One cannot attain liberation simply by speculative knowledge, even though one may be able to distinguish between Brahman and matter. One's liberation will be hampered if one is misled into thinking that the living entity is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, one falls down again onto the material platform because considering one's self the Supreme Person, the Supreme Absolute Truth, is offensive. When such a person comes in contact with a pure devotee, he can actually become liberated from material bondage and engage in the Lord's service. A prayer by Bilvamangal Thakur is relevant here. Bhaktis tvayi stirataya bhagavan yadi sya daivena nak palati divya kishora murti mukti swayam mukuli tanjali sevate sman dharmartha kama kataya samaya pratiksha. O my Lord, if one engages in your pure devotional service with determination, you become visible in your original transcendental youthful form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As far as liberation is concerned, she stands before the devotee with folded hands, waiting to render service. Religion, economic development, and sense gratification are all automatically attained without separate endeavor. Krishna Karnamrita. Shreya Shrutim Bhakti Mudasyate Vibho Lishanti Ekeva Labodha Labdaye Tesham Masao Klesha Le'eva Shishyate Nan Yad Yatastula Tushavagati Nam. My dear Lord, devotional service unto you is the only auspicious path. If one gives it up simply for speculative knowledge or the understanding that these living beings are spirit souls and the material world is false, he undergoes a great deal of trouble. He only gains troublesome and inauspicious activities. His endeavors are like beating a husk that is already devoid of rice. His labor becomes fruitless. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.4. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. The living entity is bound around the neck by the chain of Maya because he has forgotten that he is eternally a servant of Krishna. If the conditioned soul engages in the service of the Lord and simultaneously carries out the orders of his spiritual master and serves him, he can get out of the clutches of Maya and become eligible for shelter at Krishna's lotus feet. It is a fact that every living entity is eternally a servant of Krishna. This is forgotten due to the influence of Maya, which induces one to believe in material happiness. Being illusioned by Maya, one thinks that material happiness is the only desirable object. This material consciousness is like a chain around the neck of the conditioned soul. As long as he is bound to that conception, he cannot get out of Maya's clutches. However, if by Krishna's mercy he gets in touch with a bona fide spiritual master, abides by his order and serves him, engaging other conditioned souls in the Lord's service, he then attains liberation and Lord Śrī Krishna's shelter. The followers of the Varnashram institution accept the regulative principles of the four orders, social orders, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and the four spiritual orders, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. However, if one carries out the regulative principles of these orders, but does not render transcendental service to Krishna, he falls into a hellish condition of material life. One may be a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, or one may perfectly follow the spiritual principles of Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. But ultimately one falls down into a hellish condition unless one becomes a devotee. Without developing one's dormant Krishna consciousness, one cannot be factually elevated. The regulative principles of Varnashrama Dharma in themselves are insufficient for attainment of the highest perfection. That is confirmed in the following two quotations from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5, 2 and 3. Mukha bahuru padebhya purushasya ashramai saha chatvaro jagnire varna gunar vipradaya pratak. From the mouth of Brahma, the Brahminical order has come into existence. Similarly, from his arms the Kshatriyas have come. From his waist the Vaishyas have come, and from his legs the Shudras have come. These four orders and their spiritual counterparts, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas, combine to make human society complete. Ya esham purusam sakshat atma prabhavam ishvaram na bhajantya vijananti stanad brashta padantyada. If one simply maintains an official position in the four varnas and ashramas, but does not worship the Supreme Lord Vishnu, he falls down from his puffed up position into a hellish condition. There are many philosophical speculators, jñānīs, belonging to the Mayavad school who consider themselves liberated and call themselves Narayan, but their intelligence is not purified unless they engage in Krishna's devotional service. O lotus-eyed one, those who think they are liberated in this life but do not render devotional service unto you must be of impure intelligence. Although they accept severe austerities and penances and rise to the spiritual position, to impersonal Brahman realization, they fall down again because they neglect to worship your lotus feet. Bhagavatam 10.2.32. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hai Andakar Yahan Krishna Tahan Nahi Maya Adhikar. Krishna is compared to sunshine and Maya is compared to darkness. Wherever there is sunshine, there cannot be darkness. As soon as one takes to Krishna consciousness, the darkness of illusion, the influence of the material energy, will immediately vanish. In Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.34 it is stated, Vratertam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tadvidyadat manomayam yata baso yata tamaha. What appears to be truth without me is certainly my illusory energy, for nothing can exist without me. It is like a reflection of a real light in the shadows, for in the light there are neither shadows nor reflections. Wherever there is light, there cannot be darkness. When a living entity becomes Krishna conscious, he is immediately relieved of all material lusty desires. Lusty desires and greed are associated with rajas and tamas, passion and darkness. When one becomes Krishna conscious, the modes of passion and darkness immediately vanish, and then the mode of goodness, sattva gun, remains. When one is situated in the mode of goodness, he can make spiritual advancement and understand things clearly. This position is not possible for everyone. When a person is Krishna conscious, he continuously hears about Krishna, thinks about him, worships him, and serves him as a devotee. If he remains in Krishna consciousness in this way, the darkness of Maya certainly will not be able to touch him. The external energy of Krishna, known as Maya, is always ashamed to stand in front of Krishna, just as darkness is ashamed to remain before the sunshine. However, that Maya bewilders unfortunate people who have no intelligence. Thus they simply boast that this material world is theirs, and that they are its enjoyers. The entire world is bewildered because people are thinking, this is my land, America is mine, India is mine. Not knowing the real value of life, people think that the material body and the land where it is produced are all in all. This is the basic principle behind nationalism, socialism, and communism. Such thinking, which simply bewilders the living being, is nothing but rascalism. It is due to the darkness of Maya. But as soon as one becomes Krishna conscious, he is immediately relieved from such misconceptions. This verse is quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.5.13. There is also another appropriate verse in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.7.47. Shashvat prashantam abhayam pratibodha matram shudham samad sat asata paramatma tattvam shabdo nayatra purukara kaban kriyarto maya prayaitya bhumukhe chavila jamana tadvai padam bhagavata paramasya pumsam brahmeti yad vidura jasra sukham vishokam. What is realized as the absolute Brahman is full of unlimited bliss without grief. That is certainly the ultimate phase of the Supreme Enjoyer, the personality of Godhead. He is eternally devoid of all disturbances, fearless, completely conscious as opposed to matter, uncontaminated and without distinctions. He is the primeval, principal cause of all causes and effects, in whom there is no sacrifice for fruit of activities, and in whom the illusory energy does not stand. This verse was spoken by Lord Brahma when he was questioned by the great sage Narada. Narada was surprised to see the creator of the universe meditating, and thus caused him to think there might be someone greater than Lord Brahma. While answering the great sage Narada, Lord Brahma described the position of Maya and the bewildered living entities. This verse was spoken in that connection. One is immediately freed from the clutches of Maya if he seriously and sincerely says, please repeat after me, My dear Lord Kṛṣṇa, although I have forgotten you for so many long years in the material world, today I am surrendering unto you. I am your sincere and serious servant. Please engage me in your service. Pray ceaselessly. Sakradeva prapannoyas tavasmiti chayachite abhayam sarvada tasmai dadam ye tat vratam mama. This is Lord Ram speaking. It is my vow that if one only once seriously surrenders unto me, saying, My dear Lord, from this day I am yours, and prays to me for courage, I shall immediately award courage to that person, and he will always remain safe from that time on. From Ramayana, Yuddha-kāṇḍa 18.33 and it was spoken by Lord Ramachandra. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami shubhudi jadi hoy gada bhakti joge tabe krishna bhajai. Due to bad association, the living entity desires material happiness, liberation, or merging into the impersonal aspect of the Lord, or he engages in mystic yoga for material power. If such a person actually becomes intelligent, he takes to Krishna consciousness by engaging himself in intense devotional service to Lord Sri Krishna. Akama sarvakamo va mokshakama udarati tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Whether one desires everything or nothing, or whether he desires to merge into the existence of the Lord, he is intelligent only if he worships Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by rendering transcendental loving service. That's from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10. If those who desire material enjoyment or merging into the existence of the Absolute Truth engage in the Lord's transcendental loving service, they will immediately attain shelter at Krishna's lotus feet, although they did not ask for it. Krishna is therefore very merciful. You like that? Krishna kahe, ama bhaje, mage vishay sukh, amrita chari vishay mage, e bhata murk. Krishna says, if one engages in my transcendental loving service, but at the same time wants the opulence of material enjoyment, he is very, very foolish. Indeed, he is just like a person who gives up ambrosia to drink poison. Ami bigna e murke bishay kene diba, swa charnamrita diya, bishay bulaiba. Since I am very intelligent, why should I give this fool material prosperity? Instead, I shall induce him to take the nectar of the shelter of my lotus feet and make him forget illusory material enjoyment. Those who are interested in material enjoyment are known as bhukti kami. One who is interested in merging into the effulgence of Brahman or perfecting the mystic yoga system is not a devotee at all. Devotees do not have such desires. However, if a karmi, jnāni, or yogi somehow contacts a devotee and renders devotional service, Krishna immediately awards him love of God and gives him shelter at his lotus feet, although he may have no idea how to develop love of Krishna. If a person wants material profit from devotional service, Krishna condemns such materialistic desires. To desire material opulence while engaging in devotional service is foolish. Although the person may be foolish, Krishna, being all-intelligent, engages him in his devotional service in such a way that he gradually forgets material opulence. The point is that we should not try to exchange loving service for material prosperity. If we are actually surrendered to the lotus feet of Krishna, our only desire should be to satisfy Krishna. That is pure Krishna consciousness. Surrender means not that we demand something from the Lord, but that we completely depend on His mercy. If Krishna likes, He may keep His devotee in a poverty-stricken condition, or if He likes, He may keep him in an opulent position. The devotee should not be concerned in either case. He should simply be very serious about trying to satisfy the Lord by rendering Him service. Satyam dishatyartitam artito nirnam naivartato yat punar artita yata sayam vidate bhajatam anitshatam icha bidanam nijapada pallavam. Whenever Krishna is requested to fulfill one's desire, He undoubtedly does so, but He does not award anything which, after being enjoyed, will cause one to petition Him again and again to fulfill further desires. When one has other desires but engages in the Lord's service, Krishna forcibly gives one shelter at His lotus feet, where one will forget all other desires. This is from Bhagavatam 5:19-27. When someone engages in Lord Krishna's devotional service for the satisfaction of the senses and instead acquires a taste for serving Krishna, he gives up his material desires and willingly offers himself as an eternal servant of Krishna. When he was being blessed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Dhruva Maharaj said, "O my Lord, because I was seeking an opulent material position, I was performing severe types of penance and austerity. Now I have gotten you, who are very difficult for the demigods, saintly persons, and kings to attain. I was searching after a piece of glass, but instead I have found a most valuable jewel. Therefore I am so satisfied that I do not wish to ask any benedictions from you." This is from the Hari Bhakti Sudodaya. The conditioned souls are wandering throughout the different planets of the universe, entering various species of life. By good fortune, one of these souls may somehow or other be delivered from the ocean of nations, just as one of the many big logs in a flowing river may by chance reach the bank. There are unlimited conditioned souls who are bereft of Lord Krishna's service, not knowing how to cross the ocean of nations. They are scattered by the waves of time and tide. However, some are fortunate to contact devotees, and by this contact they are delivered from the ocean of nations, just as a log floating down a river accidentally washes upon the bank. Because I am so fallen, I shall never get a chance to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This was my false apprehension. Rather, by chance, a person as fallen as I am may get to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although one is being carried away by the waves of the river of time, one may eventually reach the shore. This was a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by Akrura at 1038. By good fortune, one becomes eligible to cross the ocean of nations. And when one's term of material existence decreases, one may get an opportunity to associate with pure devotees. By such association, one's attraction to Krishna is awakened. It's a trick verse. This is the trick verse. You ready? Here goes. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains this point. Is this bhagya, fortune, the result of an accident or something else? In the scriptures, devotional service and pious activity are considered fortunate. Pious activities can be divided into three categories. Pious activities that awaken one's dormant Krishna consciousness are called bhakti-mukhi sukriti. Pious activities that bestow material opulence are called bhogon-mukhi sukriti. Bhogon-mukhi sukriti. And pious activities that enable the living entity to merge into the existence of the Supreme are called mokshan-mukhi sukriti. These last two awards of pious activity are not actually fortunate. Pious activities are fortunate when they help one become Krishna conscious. The good fortune of bhakti-mukhi is attainable only when one comes in contact with a devotee. By associating with a devotee, willingly or unwillingly, one advances in devotional service. Unwillingly. And thus one's dormant Krishna consciousness awakens. O my Lord, infallible Supreme Person, when a person wandering throughout the universe becomes eligible for liberation from material existence, he gets an opportunity to associate with devotees. When he associates with devotees, his attraction for you is awakened. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the highest goal of the topmost devotees and the Lord of the universe. That's the trick verse, because it says first you get eligible for liberation, then you meet devotees. So in the purport in the Bhagavatam, the Jiva Goswami explains that this is ati prayokti. How does it say? Ati prayokti. Ati prayokti. It's a Sanskrit syntactical device for giving emphasis to something where you say the result before the cause. If you want to emphasize how powerful the cause is, you say the result first, as in, first you become eligible for liberation, then you meet the devotees. What it actually means is that devotee association is so essential and so powerful that if you even approach the devotees, then you become ready for liberation. So the order is switched. Krishna is situated in everyone's heart as the Chaitya Guru, the spiritual master within. When he is kind to some fortunate conditioned soul, he personally gives him lessons so he can progress in devotional service, instructing the person as the supersoul within and the spiritual master without. O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they are endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Brahma. For you appear in two features, externally as the Acharya and internally as the supersoul, to deliver the embodied living being by directing him how to come to you. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:29-6, spoken by Uddhava, after he had been instructed in yoga by Śrī Krishna. By associating with a devotee, one awakens his faith in devotional service to Krishna. Because of devotional service, one's dormant love for Krishna awakens, and thus one's material conditional life comes to an end. Somehow or other, if one is attracted to talks about me and has faith in the instructions I have set forth in the Bhagavad Gita, and if one is neither falsely detached from material things nor very much attracted to material existence, his dormant love for me will be awakened by devotional service. This verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:28 was spoken by Krishna at the time of his departure from this material world. It was spoken to Uddhava. Yadrishya matkata dao jata shradas ya puman na nirvino nata sakto bhakti yogosya siddhida. Siddhida, the bestower of perfection. Be a siddhida. Okay, we'll take a couple of reflections or questions. Because it's too good. We just have to sit here all day and discuss this. Okay, let's go first to the outside people's party, because and then we'll come back in. After Mukharvin, we'll have Deva Vrata. Then I see a couple more hands out there. Nanda, I see. Okay, go ahead.
So Guru Maharaj, this verse that you read also, that you like 2:4:17, verse number 20, where it is discounting all the charity, auspicious activity, meditation, mental speculation, Vedic mantras, and then it says that although they are engaged in auspicious activity, if they do not dedicate their activities to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is useless. So can you please explain what does this mean, do not dedicate their activities to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead?
Yeah, I had a verse in my head. If you can tell what it is, you win a prize. It's from the first canto, 5th chapter. Huh? Just tell me the first word of the verse. Then I'll remember. No.
Kamasya nendriya?
No. First canto, 5th chapter. Probably what's the verse? No. It means that everything can be dovetailed with Krishna. Everything should be dovetailed with Krishna.
22nd verse.
What? Idam
pumsam bhagavan evetaro.
No.
Not that.
No. No. Idam hi pumsam tapasashritasya vasuktasya suistasya tabuddhidatayo avijutartar kavibir nirupito.
Yaduttama sloka
gunarnavarnina. How does it start?
Idam
hi pumsam tapasashritasya va suistasya suktasya tabuddhidatayo avijutartar kavibir niruktito. Ka uttama shloka gunarna varnanam. Mukharvan, read the translation, please.
Learned circle have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of the achievement of knowledge, namely austerities, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of the hymn, and charity, culminates in the transcendental description of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry.
So, in the purport, Prabhupada explains how everything is meant to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Idam hi pum sams tapasa shrutasya va tapasya asteris shrutasya, great learning and oration, swistasya suktasya tibuddhidathayo. And all these things are meant to glorify. If they're not used in a service, then there's another verse just nearby where Narada says that whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply acts with different names, forms, and results to disturb the mind the way the boat on water without a resting place is disturbed by the wind. How does it start? Yato yata kinchana yad vibhakshita. Anyway, that's the basic principle of it. What's the use of anything if it's detached from the vision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So, this is what Krishna said, and we heard the verse earlier. Riteratam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tadvidyatmano mayam yatabaso yatatamaha. Anything that you see that is separate from the Lord, separate in existence from the Lord, know that to be my illusory energy, Maya. So if you see something and you say like, oh, that's a really nice museum, what do we need God for? It's illusion. Because everything has a connection with Krishna, otherwise it's a shadow of reality and it won't satisfy. So the point is everything has to be connected to Krishna. If it isn't, then it's a dead branch. It's not sustained by reality. Okay, Devavrata, and we go Nitya Tarangani. What happened? Where'd you go? You're right there. Okay, Devavrata, then Nitya Tarangani has.
I was appreciating as we're going through these verses how so many of these verses are verses which Prabhupada would regularly use. And it's just enlivening to know that this was the book that Prabhupada was reading on the Jaladuta coming over, and so much of his mission is founded on the basis of the verses spoken here. So I was just appreciating that.
You could have such appreciation that you could sequester yourself somewhere and just dedicate to learning all the verses and hearing them again and again. Right?
Definitely.
It could happen. All right, Nitya Tarangani, please give us the update. What's going on in the world?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, we have 19 people who tuned in online.
How many?
Today. 19.
19. Hare, Hare.
And that's just for the morning session. And we have one question and one reflection. The question is from Apara Gaurangi Mataji. To participate in the readings of Śrī Caitanya Charitamrita or to watch the recordings later, does one have to finish reading the entire Srimad Bhagavatam?
No, because there's plenty of context in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So no. I mean, when the Chaitanya Charitamrita came out in 1975, devotees were wondering how widely we should distribute it. And Prabhupada wanted mass distribution. That was the case with practically everything, even the Upadeshamrita. Some devotees thought, this is so esoteric, especially the last few verses. This is just for the devotees, right? Prabhupada said, no, mass quantity. We're giving them to everybody. Some cowboy in Denver, skiers getting off the slope. About Radhakund. In any case, when there's Prabhupada's purports and so forth, and there's so much context, so not necessary.
The reflection is from Sakala Subhaga Prabhu.
Sakala Subhag, Hare Krishna, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Srila Gurudev, devotees, Dandavat Pranam. Deeply grateful for Śrī Mahaprabhu's nectarian pastimes and reflections. Thanks to the tech team for amazing YouTube streaming. Missing you all.
Yeah, I second that. To the team that's streamed and done the audio, it's a painstaking task that takes starting with brainstorming, Ramananda Saka and team and all the members talking about which switch boxes, which plugs. I mean, if you look at the equipment in here, it's considerable. And then where to store it afterwards. Whose house is it kept at? How is it kept from being chewed on by rats and stuff like that? And, all that kind of stuff. What to speak of the day-to-day. I see the devotees in the team coming in here early. They leave after everybody else. They make sure everything's taken care of. And just like our Amrita Sagar, he's sitting here right now. He's glued to he has to sit in the same seat every day and be behind the camera running everything, even as he's keeping up his whole schedule. So to Chakadola, Amrita Sagar, and all those on the team, we thank you very much. Hare Hare. Chakadola brought it to a new level, putting up that television too. That's a big deal. Yes, Nanda, please go ahead.
This is a verse confirming some of the themes of the earlier reading about the potency of devotion. And this is from the Mukundamala Stotra, verse number 12, spoken by Maharaj Kulikshekhara, which I was just reading this morning, and it says, "Dear mind, do not bewilder yourself by anxiously thinking, how can I cross this fathomless and impassable ocean of material existence? There is one who can save you, devotion. If you offer her to the lotus-eyed Lord, the killer of Narakasura, she will carry you across this ocean without fail." Hare Krishna.
Hare Hare. Okay, there's a uninviting hand all the way at the back, although it does have saffron attached to the arm. So that could be a clue.
Hare Krishna. This is chapter 22, text 31, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andhakar. In this verse, Prabhupada is quoting from the Chaturshloki, Rite Artham Yat Pratiyet. Can we get a deeper insight into, because the way Maya acts and put us in darkness and illusion and bewilderment is very difficult to fathom. So how do we deeply understand, although the verse is very simple in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, how do we understand it? Can you throw some light on this?
So, could you say one sentence to throw light on what?
On the Bhagavatam verse quoted for the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Surya Sama.
Well, that's interesting. I'd ask the question like that to throw some light on it, because that's what the verse is about. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andhakar Tahan Krishna Nahi Tahan Jahan Krishna Nahi Maya Adhikar. There's a way in which, it's a simple formula. It's also almost algebraic. And then it means that if you stay constantly in touch with Krishna, you'll never be in darkness. And therefore, it's recommended Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. And what is that? Churnadapi Sunichena Tarot Api Suhishnuna Amanina Mananena Kirtaniya Sadahari. And Krishna recommends that we stay always close to him. Prabhupada says it in the verse, Shri Prambhavati Dharmatma Shashvaschantim Nagachati Konteya Pratijanihi Name Bhakti Pranashyati. That even if you're steeped in worldliness, as you practice devotional service, the remedy is, as Prabhupada says, to go on chanting without stoppage. Ceaseless prayer. And when we're chanting Krishna's name, or when we're directly engaging in the activity of hearing and chanting about Krishna, then there's no darkness. And Krishna is there within the heart, tesham satata yuktanam vachatam priti purvakam dadami buddha yogam tam yena mamupayantite. He gives illumination. He's saying he illuminates our tesham evanakam partam ajam jñānatam tamaha. I'm sorry, I'll do it right. Tesham evanakam partam aham ajnana jam tamaha. Nashyam natma bhavasto jnana deepena bhashvata. There's that metaphor again of a light, a deep, of jnana. He enlightens the heart for those who are endeavoring to understand him. They're a little sincere. Or as it mentioned earlier, you become a little interested in Krishna consciousness. What do you think of this? I'm a little interested. Then Krishna goes, okay, here you go. Here's some light. It's very personal. As Krishna's there within the heart, and he's only waiting for our attention. Bhayam dvitya binibesha tasyat ishad ape tasya viparyo smriti. We're just turned in the wrong direction, says Kavi Yogendra, and then if you turn around the other way towards Krishna, then he provides the light. So on a very practical level, it means to know what it feels like, the difference between being engaged in devotional service and being engaged in nescient activities. And you should know the difference between the two. Vidyam chayas tadvedo bayam saha avidyayam ratum tirtva vidyayam ratum ashnate. Only one who can learn the process of nations and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Devarata?
This verse something that just caught me was you said attention, placing our attention on Krishna. This is kind of a Sankhya question. Is attention the function of consciousness? Is it the function of intelligence? Is it the function of the mind? Where is the capacity of attention coming from?
Well, I just heard this morning a morning lecture on the Nectar Devotion. Prabhupada mentioned that he said when we divert our attention from Maya and towards Krishna, and we give it towards Krishna, he said that is love. I really marked that one. And when our consciousness is abhinibheshata into Maya, we're not so aware of where our attention is, and we're not very intentional about it, because we're being driven by karma, which shows up in the present moment as the impulse to look at various sense objects based on previous impressions. Karanam gunasangosya sarasadyoni janmasu. We have associated in different ways, and therefore we've developed a predisposition for certain things and a repulsion for certain things, even beyond our knowledge, and therefore we think that we're attracted to certain things and we're repulsed by certain things because that's our free will. But actually it's karma directing us in that way. But then Krishna says in the Gita, Tattvavitu mahabaho guna karma vibhagayo. What is there? Why can't I think of verses today? Tattvavitu mahabaho guna karma vibhagayo. Anyway, in this verse, you can look it up. He says that when you become a tattvavit, you understand tattva, which means to understand the different categories of energy. You know darkness and you know light. Tat means that. It's a demonstrative pronoun. You're pointing to some category and you're able to distinguish it from another. And that's what tattva is. It's the distinguishing, it's the vivek within one's intelligence to know the difference between one energy and another. Yeah, guneshu vartanta iti matvana sajjate. This verse, thank you, from 328, Krishna says, one who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, O mighty arm, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work and devotion and work for fruitive results. So in abhinibheshata, when one is absorbed in Maya and doesn't have any light whatsoever of knowledge, then one's impelled by one's own predispositions caused by previous associations to choose certain things beyond one's will. But when one comes to vivek, as Krishna recommends in the Gita, evam buddhi param buddhvasam stabhyatmanam jahishatram mahabaho kamarupam darasaram, that one fortify one's intelligence to understand the categories of what's in one's interest and what isn't, and one's able to use one's intelligence. And at that point, one can use one's free will to point one's attention towards Krishna. And that is the function of, attention it comes from the soul, because the intelligence and the mind and the ego don't have any independent source of energy. They're just instruments. They don't have volition. The soul has volition, but we lose our volition by choosing Maya. Just like, who is that author? He's a psychologist who writes about escape from freedom. Is it Fromm? Yeah, Erich Fromm. He's a psychologist. He writes historically about how people fall under the clutches of fascism. They have freedom and, these concocted systems like democracy and so forth, and then the freedom's too much for them. So they willfully hand over their freedom to some despot who controls them. And he talks about how people become afraid of the freedom they have when they recognize the responsibility of their own freedom. People are afraid of it. It's a little scary to recognize to emerge from the animal species of life where you're completely controlled by nature, and when you rise above the animalistic mind in the human form and come to realize there's a juncture here where we have freedom. Sometimes people retreat from it, and especially because they don't have clear knowledge about where to place their intention. But if we're properly informed and we come into the association of devotees, and as I already quoted the various verses, we're able to develop purified intelligence and have discrimination, then it's the soul that's using its free will to point the attention towards Krishna. It's the awakening of the soul, coming out of matter, the darkness of matter, and being controlled by matter. That's proven in that verse, Tattvavitu Mahabaho. Because the verse in front of that, what's the verse? It's 327. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. The person's totally controlled by nature. But then, tattvavit, when he becomes informed, he becomes vit, a knower of tattva. Tattvavitu mahabaho, guna karma vibhaga. He understands how the modes of nature are working on him. Guna guneshu vartanta iti matva nasajite. At that time, he gets freedom to point use his will, his volition towards Krishna. That's a great day for the soul, when he realizes I have a choice. Then one can apply one's own sincerity, because one can then think of Krishna's invitation that you can just depend on me and I'll deliver you from the mire of material existence. And then the soul can just say, he can sign up for it. I'm going to sign on to this program. Use free will to hand over your consciousness to Krishna. Well-reasoned choice. Did I even answer your question? You did? I did? Okay. But what about Prabhu's Rambhadrapriya Prabhu, did it answer your question? He might have left already.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, one more before the bell rings.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Thank you for such a detailed explanation that you just gave. There was a lot of information packed into your statements. And before this Prabhu asked his question, I was looking at text 50, where Krishna says, if you have faith in his instructions in Bhagavad Gita, and if one is neither falsely detached from material things, nor very much attracted to material existence. I was wondering if that statement ties in with what you just explained, or maybe you can just tell me in a simple way what is meant by falsely detached.
Well, the falsity of detachment comes, as is explained by Rupa Goswami, when he says, Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjita nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchite prapanchikattaya buddhya harisambandhi vasana mamukshavo prityago vairagyam palagukatite. And that is that real renunciation means to recognize everything's connection to Krishna. And if one, out of a false sense of renunciation, gives up things that can be used in Krishna's service, it's known as a false renunciation. So false renunciation generally comes as a reaction, as Lord Chaitanya explains, of bhoga tyag. I try to enjoy the material world, I double down, I try really hard, I watch YouTube videos, I go to all the conferences and get a big downline, whatever it is you want to invest in the material world, and then you get overwhelmed, disappointed. You might have success, which might be the worst thing could ever happen to you, and you realize that the whole thing's a bust. I'm not happy at all, worse than I was before. And then you, because of lack of knowledge of Krishna, you have an impure intelligence, it's not purified, or rikta matayo, your head's empty of any conception of Krishna, then you, by default, it goes back to tyaga, which means, okay, I'll just give the whole thing up and that'll solve the problem. But it doesn't. One has to positively engage everything in Krishna's service. So one's come to that point of, he's not so disgusted with the material nature that he just wants to give the whole thing up, which is errant psychological state Krishna mentions in the Gita when he says Vita Raga, Raga Bhaya Krodha. He says there's three things you have to give up. Raga means this inordinate attachment to temporary things, really not a great idea. Bhaya, which means fear of personal existence, because my engagement in the material world has become so burdensome and disappointing that I want to just give up the whole idea of being a person or having any relationship with anything. And then comes krodha, which means anger, because no one's given a proper answer, and therefore I just become angry at anybody who gives any answer and say nothing means anything. And so if one comes to knowledge by the association of devotees or by Krishna's mercy from within the heart, he understands that falsely giving up the material world, which I could have just said in the first place, because of not seeing his relationship to Krishna, is not helpful. So yeah, false renunciation means forgetting that it belongs to Krishna. And in the section of the Bhagavatam that verse comes from, Krishna explains to Uddhava that those who are disgusted with the material world, they can take the jnana. Those who are still very optimistic about the material world, although they want to move forward, they can take the karma. For those who are neither disgusted nor detached from it, or they're neither disgusted nor attracted to engaging, then they can take the bhakti. It's sort of They're situated in the middle path. Any other things? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj. Thank you for the nice explanation for the question that Devavrata Prabhu had asked. I was also recently contemplating on the Prakriti Kriyamana in that verse. I was visualizing like the car. The driver is the intelligence and the passenger is the soul. And the owner, actual owner is in the rear seat, is just observing everything. And the mind is the steering. So how the soul is bewildered and getting attracted to the senses and following it, we just have to change the consciousness to the rear, the owner shift. Yeah. And one observation from yesterday and one question from today. In text 27, it says, from the mouth of Brahma, the Brahmanical order came. But in the Purusha Sukta, I think it says from Purusha, it came, right? But it says here Brahma.
Yeah, well, Brahma is a secondary creator. So the Purusha Sukta means that the sages, there are some sages there already. And they understand by intuition that the means to success is yajna. Just like Brahma understood intuitively when he first heard tapa, because he couldn't figure anything out, and then he got this admonition to do tapasya. Are we in trouble? And then who's leaving? Oh, okay, we'll end with this and we'll see Havi off. What was I saying?
The Brahma, Purusha Sukta, sages.
Yeah, so the sages understood. So that's the idea behind the Purusha Sukta. Where would they get their ingredients for yajna? From the Purusha, the universal form of the Lord. So that the whole Purusha Sukta talking about, they're taking the ingredients for yajna from the body of the Lord and then offering it back to the Lord. But then Bhagavatam explains how when Krishna wants to do the secondary creation, he empowers Brahma. Kurvandirantaram karma loko yamaravartate tenaiva kamaradhyayam mam param bhaktamichiti amhi vishvasya characharasya bijam pradhanam prakriti pumamscha mayahi tam teja idam vivarshi videhi tomato jaganti. He empowers him with the knowledge of how to recreate the universe. It's an algorithm that comes back every creation, and then it comes back into the consciousness of Brahma, who is selected amongst all the best living entities, and then Krishna gives him the algorithms back, and then he'll create using those mantras. So anyway, there's different levels of creation. So that level comes from the mouth, the Brahman.
Thank you, Maharaj. Yeah, yesterday...
We got to go see Havi off because he's leaving in 2 minutes. So can you carry that over to the next one?
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, Śrī Panchatattva, if you so desire, please allow us to keep reading these teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami when we come back from breakfast. Thank you for considering our request. Gaur Premanande. Panchakalpadrishcha kripasinabhevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. The great Havi Prabhu has left the building and he's just about to catch a cab. So if anybody